Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's session. I am Shraddha from Iris Carbon, and I'll be moderating today's webinar, which is Preparation for ESEF 2022, Navigating the New Taxonomy and the Filing Requirements. So please note, in UK, we operate with the trade name Phoenix Solution, and we do not have any association with the UK's Iris Group. So we are delighted to have you, everybody here, and we would see that all of the participants are being still logging to the webinar. So welcome everybody once again. Just a few housekeeping announcements before we go ahead. So all the participants are on mute, and along with the presentation, if you have any kind of questions and answers, please free to drop in the Q&A section, and we can take the questions after the webinar is completed. So thanks once again, everybody, for joining today's webinar. I would like to now introduce our key speaker, which is Neha. So Neha is also an XBRL expert and a customer engagement manager working at Iris. And she has around 11 years of experience working into the XBRL space. And also she's working mostly with the European clients on the ESEF mandate. So welcome, Neha.
Thank you, Shraddha.
No problem. So I think then we can start. Go to the next slide, please. So probably from here onwards, Neha will take the control, and probably Neha, you can just go ahead and introduce ourselves and then continue with the webinar topic.
Okay, so thank you so much, Shraddha, for the brief introduction, and thank you so much for the connect. And I would like to welcome all the joiners who have joined today's webinar. So let's get started with the webinar. With the hot and latest topic of preparation of ESEF filing, navigating the latest taxonomy, and also we will see what are the filing requirements. So the latest, there are so many latest updates in the ESEF reporting manual, in the 2022 taxonomy, and of course the phase 2 of the mandate. So we will be discussing these topics one by one in our today's webinar. So before that, I would like to introduce ourselves, what we do, and from where we are. So by way of introduction, the name of our company is Iris Business Services Limited. As Shraddha said, in UK, we operate under the trade name of Phoenix Solutions, and we are not associated with any Iris Group. So we are world's leading XBRL providers, and we call ourselves leading RegTech firm because we work on this space of data standards. We work for regulators. We work for filers. We work for enterprises in over 50 countries all over the world. We are headquartered in Mumbai. We are a listed company. We are listed in Bombay Stock Exchange and National Stock Exchange. We have an experience of 17 years in XBRL and iXBRL space. We have also enduring relationship with RBI in India since over a decade, Deloitte and Accra in Singapore. We are also a member of XBRL International, XBRL Europe, XBRL Italy, XBRL US, and XBRL South Africa Consortium. So this is our global presence. We are in 50 countries all over the world with 30 plus regulators. And as far as the employees goes, we have 400 plus XBRL experts, and millions of filings are getting filed every year using our platform. These are the logos of few of our clients from European region. We have Colruyt Group, the largest retailer in Belgium, Eni, the largest energy company, Nordicon, the largest construction company, and Pembridge Resources, the largest mining company. So these are the logos of few of our clients in European region. Now let's discuss the first topic of today's webinar, which is ESEF 2022 taxonomy and overview. I know you all must be very eager to know what are the recent updates in the taxonomy. But before that, I would like you to know what are the things contents in the latest ESEF 2022 taxonomy. So there are disclosures, line items, labels, references, and formula validation. As ESEF adopted the IFRS taxonomy, there are major changes in the IFRS standards. If you see the statistics here, there is one disclosure which has been added, 5 line items added in 5 different disclosures, 96 labels has been changed, 189 references deleted, and 189 references has been added and 100 references has been deleted. So all these changes happened due to changes in the IFRS standards. Now let's see what are the changes in IFRS standards. So there are changes in IS 1, IS 8, IFRS 17, and IFRS 9. So the first change is in disclosure of accounting policies, which is from IS 1, which is for presentation of financial statements, and also IFRS practice statement 2 for making materiality judgments. The second amendment is in definition of accounting estimates, which is for IS 8, accounting policies, changes in accounting estimates, and errors. And the third amendment is due to initial application and amendments to IFRS 17 and IFRS 9. IFRS 17 is for insurance contracts and IFRS 9 is for financial instrument. So because of the change in the IS 1 IFRS practice statement 2 of making materiality judgments, there is a disclosure which has been added. So the disclosure which has been added is list of material accounting policy information. Though the disclosure is new here, but all the elements are from the existing disclosure of list of notes and accounting policies. As these elements, text block elements, are from the materiality judgments, that's why all these elements are grouped here under this list of material accounting policy information disclosure. These are the 5 new line items which has been added in different disclosures. So there are 3 text block elements which has been added and 2 dimensional members has been added in different disclosure. You can see here that these elements are the results of amendments and initial applications of IFRS standards. To the next slides, let's discuss the last topic of ESEF 2022 taxonomy, which is validation rules. Before that, we should know what are the validation rules. Validation rules are basically a set of errors and warnings which ESMA has built in using the formula linguist. And the formula validation contains IFRS taxonomy, ESEF taxonomy, and LEI taxonomy, which is legal entity identifier. So if you see the comparative figures here from the previous year, there are changes in taxonomy rules only, where there are 28 changes in previous year, and this year it's only 18 rules are there. We will be discussing all these changes in our next slides. So these are the categories of formula validation rules. So as I discussed in my earlier slide, there are 3 segments: IFRS taxonomy, ESEF taxonomy, and LEI taxonomy rules. Under these segments, few validation rules has been defined. For example, the first category is excess aggregation validation. For example, you want to sum up any dimensional data. So this is the calculation wherein you can sum up a dimensional information. For example, if you want to sum up a total equity, it will always be a sum of non-controlling interest plus equity other components and plus equity attributable to owners of parents. This is how excess aggregation validation will be run. Next is cross-period validation. If there are any cross-period validation, for example, if you want to calculate the closing balance, it would always be the opening balance plus changes during the period. Then we have the validation rule have a formula to calculate the EPS. So according to this validation, the EPS will be calculated using this formula only. Then we have fact equivalent validations. So when two facts are tagged by different taxonomy concepts and conceptually represent the same thing, so their value should be equal. For example, discontinued operation as a member and income loss from discontinued operation as a line item. Discontinued operation as a member and discontinued operation, income loss from discontinued operation represent the same thing. So their value should be equal. If not, then you will get a fact equivalence validation error here. Then we have negative fact validation. So there are certain elements where only negative facts should be reported. For example, cost of sales. If the validations find some positive facts for these line items, it will throw you the negative fact validation errors. Then we have percentage warnings. So the format of percentage should be as per the format given by the XBRL specification only. If not, then the percentage warning will come up. Then we have period adjusted axis aggregation validation. So your opening balance plus adjustment due to cumulative effect should always be equal to opening balance after adjustments. If not, then this will throw the error of period adjusted axis aggregation validation. Similarly, positive fact validation is as similar as the negative fact validation. So there are certain elements where the value reported should be 0 or more than 0. If by any chance any negative value is reported, then it will throw the positive fact validations. Then we have a very important validation, which is technical validation. This validation will basically take care of your inconsistent duplicate facts. We have to be very careful for this validation because this will prevent you from the live filing with the portal. So this inconsistent duplicate fact is basically if a single line item is tagged for two different values, then this inconsistent duplicate fact validation will run. So we have the issuer has to make sure that there should not be any inconsistent duplicate errors. Then there is a context validation. The reporting period end date and start date should be as the format given by the XBRL specification. Now, this mandatory markup validation is something which is updated this year. Till last year, there is a list of 10 mandatory elements given, and the information is available in your report. You need to tag against those elements. And the information is not available, then you can simply leave it. But this mandatory markup validation warnings would come up. But this year, due to the block tagging of nodes and due to the 252 mandatory markups, this warning has been completely removed, which means this year you will not get any mandatory markup validation warnings. And the last one is for fact and footnote validation, which is from ESEF Taxonomy rules. So if you have a footnote, so the footnote should be linked to at least one fact value. Else it will throw you the fact and footnote validation error. So these are the categories of formula validation rules which the software vendors needs to take care in their software, and each and every file will run before filing it with the regulator. Now, after seeing all these changes in the 2022 taxonomy, let's see what are the impact on text block tagging. So the biggest impact and good news is that if you are using 2022 taxonomy for your 2022 annual report, you are no longer required to use the monster tag, which is disclosure of notes and other explanatory information. This is something European Commission has published in their official journal and applicable only if you are using the 2022 taxonomy for your 2022 annual report. Now let's see what are the things to be considered for ESEF filing 2022 from the latest taxonomy point of view. So if you are using 2022 taxonomy for your 2022 annual report, this is something which is completely voluntary and not mandatory, which means you are still allowed to use the 2020 ESEF taxonomy for your 2022 annual report. Now, let's move to the second topic of today's webinar, which is the filing requirements and how to prepare for 2022 ESEF filing. So whenever I think of ESEF, I always wonder what are the parties involved in the whole process. I know you might be wondering that it always be the preparers and the auditors. But no, it's not only the preparers or the auditors. There are many more parties who are involved directly and indirectly in the whole process. And they are issuers, software vendors, auditors, and regulators. So now let's discuss what are the things to be considered from each and every party's point of view. From issuer's perspective, first of all, the issuers needs to understand the latest ESEF reporting manual requirements and the 2022 taxonomy. The mandate is basically, phase 2 of the mandate is to mark up a list of mandatory elements has been given as per Annexure 2, Table 2 of Regulatory Technical Specification, which is given by ESMA. And you need to block tag your notes to financial accounts using those mandatory elements. A dry run for block tagging of notes on 2022 one annual report will basically give you a stock of your software vendors' capabilities, and you can take a well-informed decision in advance. Please make sure that the software vendors is able to handle the granular level of tagging. Here, the issuers have to coordinate with each and every party, no matter it's the preparers, auditors, designers, or the translators, and to work on the calendar planning so that there would not be any last-minute delays. Now, let's see what are the things to be considered from the software vendor's point of view. Software vendor has to make sure that your software is updated with latest ESEF reporting manual and latest 2022 taxonomy. Here, the key takeaway for the software vendors is to expect the unexpected. The software vendor has to make sure that the people and the procedure is in place to react very quickly when there will be any client's unique requirements or issues. The software should handle the granular level of block tagging. And this would be possible if there would be a dry run activity on 2021 annual report, which will include block tagging of notes. The rendering of iXBRL document should be a mirror image of your annual report, because it may happen that due to the block tagging of notes, the formatting or the stylization may hamper. And needless to say, there should not be any compromise on the quality of your iXBRL files, because this is the whole and sole purpose of the whole process. Now let's see from the auditor's perspective. So I usually hear from my auditors the extended time taken to review or audit the iXBRL files. Those are the days wherein the auditors used to make changes in the annual report as well. And this results in delay in iXBRL filing because the audit process has not been completed. Our advice here is to involve the auditors as soon as possible. Discuss everything with the auditors, the planning, the execution, and involve them in the workflow, and especially with respect to the timing. Here, the table content must be displayed as table instead of text in the iXBRL document. There should, as I said, there will be advanced involvement in the calendar planning. Also, I would like to say that auditors should include in the process as soon as possible. So it would be possible in the dry run activity on your 2021 annual report. So the good news here is that 80% of your work, of auditors' work, will be done here on pre-agreed tags on 2021 annual report. And believe me, this will save a lot of time during the busy filing season. And the last point is that the auditors must provide the signed audit report in advance so that the software vendors will get enough time to implement the same in the final iXBRL or XHTML document. Now, let's see from the regulator's point of view. So the OM portals should be updated as per the ESEF reporting manual guidelines and ESEF taxonomy. If there are any regulator-specific requirements and validation rules, that should be communicated well in advance to the issuers and the software vendors. The provision for test and live filing access should be there in advance. The provision for ESEF 2021 and 2022 taxonomy should be there in the portals. Now, looking at all the things to be considered from the stakeholders' point of view, what are the challenges of block tagging? Due to granular level of tagging, the turnaround time may increase. So every parties need to understand and budget the timeline accordingly. The size of the XHTML output will increase with the block tagging of nodes. So the software vendors have to make sure that the size of the iXBRL files is agreed with the regulator. As I said in my previous slide, due to block tagging of nodes, the formatting and stylization may hamper. So every party is involved, make sure that the formatting and stylization remain intact. There may be chances that the software vendors needs to deal with multiple versions and languages of annual report. And there may be last minute changes or queries from the auditors here as well. So here every party needs to understand, and here you do not have to be time crunched. At last, I would only like to add that to make this process smoother, each and every party should know their roles and responsibilities. There may be changes, there may be iterations, there may be edits, but these edits due to block tagging of nodes are not easy. So it will take time, and every party should be calm and should not be time crunched here. So this is from my side, and I wish everyone a very happy and error-free ESEF 2022 filing. So these are a few of reading materials from our XBRL experts, and this you can see on our website as well. And these are the reading materials from ESMA, which you can go through and understand the requirements this year. And now my favorite segment comes in, that is question and answers. And from now onwards, I will hand this session to Shraddha. So Shraddha, over to you.
Thanks, Neha. Thanks, Neha, for the detailed explanation on the ESEF 2020 taxonomy and the things that we need to consider for this year filing. It was very interesting and insightful. Thanks very much on that. So I think we come to the Q&A segment now. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. So I think we have few questions here. So I think that I'll pick up the first one. So I think the first question is, what does a dry run on previous year report entail? So what is a dry run exercise that we mentioned here, what it talks about? So basically, dry run activity is what we want to just make sure that before going to the actual filing, you just conduct a dry run exercise on your 2021, which is already published report, and do the entire block text tagging, and they have the same user experience, how it will be on your live filing. So this will entail that, all the things has been taken care well in advance. If there are anything that needs to be incorporated, some technical challenges, if there are any that come across during the actual filing, it gets all resolved well in time, and it will not impact your filing deadline. So this is what it is recommended, that every company should go ahead and do the dry run exercise on their 2021 report, if it is published or if it's not published as per their requirement. And doing the block text tagging is very, very needed, because it's a bit challenging this year, because everything is new, everybody is new to the market, and exploring new possibilities on the block text tagging will take time, going forward. So that is what is recommended. So I think the next, again, the question that we have is, what is the difference between a block tagging and a detail tagging? Very interesting question. So I think block tagging mainly includes tagging of a text as a block, block as a text. So like if you have notes to account, so every note would be tagged as a block of text. Detail tagging is something within the note. If you have certain, values or certain text that needs to be tagged in detail, say like a property plant equipment note. So within the note, you have a table, or within the note, you have table, and then you have values. So those all detail tagging will be taken care, I think, from 2024 onwards. So where every company or issuer has to make sure they do detail tagging of their notes to accounts as well, on their filings. So I think the next question is on the mandatory validations. We have few more questions coming in. So mandatory validation for name of reporting entity removed. So if 22 taxonomy name of reporting may not be tagged. Yes, so I think you can very well, if we are using the 2022 taxonomy, it is not required. So the mandatory tagging validation rule has been removed. The information still has to be reported, but it will not throw as an error. So that is what it meant. The validation rules that are removed from the taxonomy, it mainly says, or indication is that it is no longer to be validated. So the next we have is, what taxonomy is recommended for 2022 AR? Very nice question. I think, 2022 taxonomy, which has been released in December, right? And the conformance rule that has been released. So everything has to be bundled up together and incorporated in the software vendors packages, right? And then only it will be applicable or to be useful for the issuers to use on the 2022 reports. So I think what we would recommend this year, or for this particular filing season, is that as we have a short time frame, so if we can just go ahead and use the 2021 taxonomy, because it has been well tested, the dry run has been conducted using your 2021 taxonomy. So it is recommended to use 2021 taxonomy for your 2022 annual return for now. Then we have, are the difference now in block tagging between ESEF ESMA and UK ESEF tagging requirements? I think it's more or less the same. So UK SEF and the European Commission's mandate is the same, more or less. It's the few disclosures are different, but I think the requirement on block tagging remains the same. Also in UK, it is still voluntary to use the UK SEF taxonomy. So you can just go about and use the ESEF taxonomy for your 2022 filing as well. I think a very important, a very interesting question is like, tabular format for text block is not mandatory as per ESMA manual, please confirm, right? So I think many companies are facing, or challenges, like how the tabular information should be reported as a table in your iXBRL document. And there are few things that the software vendors can pull up and display as a table, but few things are not yet. So it's kind of not mandatory or not required to be done as per the ESEF manual, but I think there are certain region-wise requirements as well. We need to understand that also, because every region has a specific requirement. As Neha already pointed out, as per the regulator, every regulator comes up with a new set of requirements and they need to be added by their local jurisdiction. So if in that particular region, this is a thing that needs to be there and should be addressed, so we need to take care on that, and we need to implement that as well in the tool itself. So I think that's answered the question. I think so. The next is when we will be mandatory for Europe to use the detail tagging. very nice. So I think we are still on this phase 2 of the mandate where we have come up with the block text tagging. So I think the detailed tagging will take time. The rollout will be there, but definitely. But I don't see that coming in next year onwards. It will, because we need to see that block text tagging is through thoroughly and it is smooth for the going forward years, and then only they can introduce with the detailed tagging. But we don't know. So probably it may be coming from next 2 years down the line as well. So we just have to wait and watch. Okay, I think that's about it. Any questions? Anybody? So feel free to drop in your comments as well. I think one question we have is, I followed your dry run recommendation with the very tedious, time consuming, and yeah, I know, because every company has a unique way of reporting. Some companies has to report dual language or 3 languages. So the dry run has to be conducted well in advance, as we already mentioned. And if it is conducted before the filing or before the peak, that would be easy, because the auditors also need time to review. They need to provide a sign off. And as well, you can go ahead and do the test run on the regulator website as well. So once that activity is done, it is a time consuming, because this is a new thing, new approach for everybody to, go ahead and work with. So I think this year it will be a bit challenging and a tedious one. But I think once everybody is thorough with this, the next year will be smooth. So it's not like, like last year, it was only 5 statements to be tagged. It was very simple, straightforward. But this year, with the complexity of granular level of tagging, it is taking more time for the issuers as well as for auditors to review, and the timing also is getting impacted. So probably I foresee this year the filings will be a bit late. That's what I personally feel. But if we, consider the timelines and decide the timelines well in advance, keep some leeway or keep some buffer time well in advance for each and every, respective entities or respective parties like issuers, software vendors, and the auditors, then the filing may go smooth. So I think nothing to worry, just kind of a one level of, going ahead in the mandate side. So once we are thorough with that, next year will be smooth for everybody. Okay, I think that's answers all of it. Of course, yes, everybody will get the copy of the presentation, and we will be emailing that to everybody. So you need not worry. All the reference materials you can just see, for using our whatever it was mentioned by Neha, and you can easily work on that as well. Okay. So I think a very special discount for all the attendees. If you're not yet ready for the 2022 ESEF filings, you can, please contact us. These are the contact information. And if you want to do some dry run activity on your 2021, if you are late filers, right, say like September onwards or like August is your filing date, it's still time that you can just go ahead and, we can do a dry run activity. You can verify, review, approve, and then only you can get ready for the 2022 filing. So that's about it from my side. Anything else, Neha, you want to add on here?
No, Shraddha, all good here.
Okay, I think everything looks good. So thanks everyone for your attendance, and much appreciated for everybody to taking out time and listening to the webinar. I hope everybody will have a good filing season with all the stress and everything. But it's the time, so probably the next 2 months will be very, very busy for everybody. So all the very best for your filing season this year. Okay, thanks Neha, and thanks everyone.
Thank you, Shraddha, and thank you everyone for joining the webinar.
Yes. Have a nice day, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.